Hi everybody, this is our chapter on leadership. This is chapter 9 from Owens and Valesky. The main reason that I chose to make this an online week was basically because you've had leadership in almost all of your classes. I'm going to go over this very quickly. Most of these slides I'm only going to talk about for a couple of minutes, and in doing so, this will kind of introduce the topics, introduce the ideas to you, and we can go a little bit from there. And you can explore them on your own if they potentially could relate to your dissertations. You've seen all this before. None of this should be new. If it is, that's kind of a surprise to me. So, like I said, I'm going to focus on some that are in the textbook that you might not have encountered. And that's kind of the goal I have here. So, we could all make an argument that we have something in our schools today called adaptive leadership. This is basically showing that leadership is going to change all of the time, and the style that you use in 2010 is going to be different than the style that you use in 2015. It's going to be different than the style you use in 2020. That being said, this is something that leads more to a longitudinal type study if you're looking at patterns or initiatives in a district or organization, or you could do this historically, which if you've been in a district for a long time, this is actually a really good idea. Historically, look at their professional development initiatives, if they worked, what direction they went in, and that sort of thing. So I've argued, and we've said throughout this class, that leaders have to be managers. Good leaders are good managers, and people are going to criticize what school administrators do all of the time. In the public, in the press, everywhere. So you have to be aware of that, and you know that for those of you that are in the position already. So this is important. If you're going to try to study power, the main work came from French and Raven in 1957. So if you're looking at any theories that involve power, this is one that I would visit. It's basically saying that all leaders have some sort of power over others, and one person will eventually emerge with the most power in a group. And I can certainly speak from my experience, that's definitely the case. So there are 5 types of power. Let me briefly go over each one of these. So, reward power. Basically, this is saying that if you do something right, you get a reward. Teachers get rewards after positive test scores, or if a major district level initiative is implemented. Is this good? Is this bad? Is there a problem with this? I don't necessarily have a right or wrong answer on this. I think this is an ethical and a moral thing more than anything else. I have no problem with giving people rewards. Some people do. But this is a different type of power. And you as a leader, if you're giving rewards, you have the opportunity to have power over people. So, coercive power directly relates to control. This is basically saying, I'm going to take something away from you if you do something wrong. And I relate this a lot to urban school districts because of the major pressures they face in high-stakes testing and accountability. And I argue the principle does have to be coercive occasionally. How you do that, it depends on the environment and the stakeholders in your organization. So, expert power are the people that have so much knowledge so that others comply with them, or they try to acquire the knowledge themselves. These are the people that can kind of put themselves in a position and say, well, I have the answers, and I'm the person in charge, and I know how this is going to play out for next year. Therefore, by you doing something to influence it, you can be involved in that procedure as well. Legitimate power is legitimate power. There's no other way to say this. I think it comes from respect. And the key thing that I say here is that these are the people that have earned respect over a lot of time. If you're in a district with a superintendent that's been there for 12 to 15 years, they have legitimate power. My principal friend who's been in the occupation for, longer than I've been alive, she has legitimate power. She can make that, she has respect because she's earned it over time, and she has power and she understands the organization. So, referent power is the, it's the more charismatic belief. These are the people that are starry-eyed. You come in and you think, oh wow, they are just an amazing person. They're going to do everything. They're going to change this. They're going to change that. Most of the time, they get followers very quickly. Once they get those followers, they grow with the followers, and they either go out of power quickly, or they continue to increase their followers. So you've talked about transformational leadership in every single one of your classes. You don't need me to say anything much else about this. The main idea is that subordinates are inspired, so they do more than is expected of them because they want to transform as well as the organization. So Nordhaus really looked over the difference, and if you took our master's program, you used Nordhaus in it. They looked at the difference between transformational and transactional, basically saying that transformational is you get to know the people first, you get a connection with them, then you motivate them to reach their potential. And transactional is I tell you what to do, you do it, we exchange whatever we exchange.
Hi.
Transformational leaders and charisma. This is sort of the idea that in order to be transformational, you have to be charismatic. Some people are charismatic, some have those opportunities, some have those abilities, and certain people are able to do that and to get you to a place where the organization wants to be. So I actually think this is relevant. You can decide whether a divine origin makes or does not make for charisma. Basically, our textbook says that people that are strong in charisma are strong role models, they're competent to followers, they have ideological goals that are articulated well, they have high expectations, and here's a big one, task-relevant motivation. Essentially what that means is that these individuals are going to do tasks, and they're going to have others do tasks for them. So things get done while they're still doing what they need to do. So if you look at moral leadership, you're going to look at either Kohlberg or Kouzes and Posner. It's basically saying that you're sharing your values and your needs with others, and you take responsibility for things. So most of you have heard of professional learning communities. And I know a lot of people end up doing their dissertations on professional learning communities. My opinion on that, you're one of about 20,000 people who's done their dissertation on professional learning communities. But if you're going to do it, and you do not mention Dufour and Eaker, they're the ones that did it, and they related it to this notion of distributed leadership. So professional learning communities, if this is your topic, this is your interest, it's Dufour and Eaker. So what are professional learning communities? There are 6 elements of them. The first one is that you have a shared mission, vision, and values. This basically means that all administrators are doing the same thing. They're all on the same page. They share the mission and vision and values together. The stakeholders are involved in them as well. And everybody believes and understands what the mission, vision, and values is. I always start with this one in the beginning of any class I teach where we look at leadership, because I ask how many people actually know the mission and vision statement. And when I did this in here, nobody knew the mission and vision statement or knew a little bit of it. But in a professional learning community, they would argue this comes first. Collective inquiry is when you build shared knowledge through working in teams. Smaller buildings, smaller districts, this works better than larger districts with more buildings. I think that's another no-brainer as well. Teams have to be collaborative. They can't have one person dominate the other ones. This is why I'm cynical when it comes to PLCs, and why I think that they need to have more guided direction and focus, and the principals have to be more hands-on on this sort of approach to learning.
Hey.
Action, orientation, and experimentation, basically showing you that PLCs is improving materials and improving instruction. My experience has shown that PLCs really just design benchmark exams more than anything else. I would encourage you to look at the PLC model and not use it for benchmark exams, because that's what everybody uses the PLC model for. If you want to do it, it has to happen frequently. Basically what happens is this gets big in the beginning of the year, everybody's gung ho and excited about it, then they get canceled. and the entire concept is pushed behind for the year. And I have a problem with that approach as well. So if you do this, it has to be consistent, and you have to do it right. In order for PLCs to work, they have to produce results. When you hear conversations about them, you talk about benchmark exams and standardized tests because it has to be tied to something. So that's kind of the idea and the notion behind the PLC approach. So Epstein did parent involvement. I know a couple of people in here wanted to do parent involvement. If you have ways to measure this, I would do it, but my opinion is you need to focus building level if you're doing parent involvement, not district level. Most research will show you that it's more building than district level. If you want to look at this work, it came out of Epstein, and this is pretty common as well. So what do parents do? Parents need to be able to provide basic needs for children. Schools, the opinion was that schools should offer GED classes and provide basic education courses to explain how they can better help to meet their children's needs. There has to be good communication between the school and home, good updated websites, sending newsletters home, social media. Anything you can do to make the experience personable is something that helps with good communication. I believe in parents as volunteers at the school. If you can get them in, get them involved, it alleviates half of the problems and half of the work. As long as the parents have clearances and you can get them involved, it'll help them feel more involved in what's going on in the school. Parents as instructors in the home, parents need to be aware of homework policies and provide opportunities to help children throughout the school year. One of the challenges that I found working in an affluent school district was a lot of parents simply just did the kids' homework and then they turned it in. So parents can be instructors at the home, but there are problems with that as well. Parents are going to be involved in school governance, but I would argue, and I've said this already in here and I will continue to say it, the more high socioeconomic parents are the ones that have the more specific agendas. These are your athletics and marching band parents. Your goal as a district leader is to get a cross-section of the population to get involved. And if you can do that, that's tremendous. So if there are community resources, get parents involved in them. This was one of the big ideas that was discussed in the Anthony Brick book that we spoke about. The idea of community organizations, health services, social services, make sure that you have collaboration with the community where possible. So sustainable leadership is the last concept. If you know anything about sustainable leadership, you're going to know Michael Fullan, and you're also going to know Hargreaves and Fink. It's the biggest study there is in the 7 principles of sustainable leadership in schools. So Fullan was looking at it more from systems capacity, and Hargreaves and Finks was looking at it for ways that sort of have benefit within the organization. So they kind of had 2 different definitions. The principles that came out of them, there are 7 presented. I'll go over each one a little bit at a time. Leadership has to focus on the learning process and be deep and broad. You have to have long-term responses. Hargreaves and Fink said that short-term does not work, but Fullan said short-term actually builds bigger, better trust in the community. Leadership has to be preserved in the organization, distributed enough so there's succession, so that if somebody leaves, somebody else can step in with minimal interruption. Power has to be throughout the organization. When you have this happen, all stakeholders feel their voices and their opinions are being heard. The principal should improve the school on their own and not rate other schools for students, teachers, or other resources. I don't know about this one. I know if I'm a building principal or a district leader, I want the best and the brightest working with my students, but if you're using justice and equity, it means that you do not raid and you do not steal from other buildings. I don't know if that's necessarily the case in a lot of schools. So the notion of diversity, bring people with different ideas together, and you can do this through just different groups and different organizations. You can do this through including technology as well. So resources should not be exploited, including trust, confidence, and emotion. You build it, you keep it in your organization, and that can help as well. And if there are past successes and failures, you need to learn from them. And if something doesn't work, get rid of it and continue successful practices. So, like I said, I was very quick on this chapter. I didn't expect much. I would tell you, look at Nordhaus if you actually want to go through this. Make that your priority, and that's the one we use in our master's program. But that's a basic overview of what we looked at in here. So thank you.